Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for another Facebook Live event. We have taken your questions via email at the Facebook Live at leeschools.net, and we'll be answering them during this event. We will attempt to get any appropriate questions from the live chat as well. Based on your specific questions today, we have invited Dr. Jeff SPIRO, our Chief Academic Officer, Jessica Duncan, our Executive Director of Student Services, Rick PARFITT, our Coordinator for Threat Assessment, and Roger LLOYD, our Director for Transportation. To provide the questions collected on email and Facebook, Rob SPICKER, our Assistant Director for Media Relations and Public Information, is here to kick this off. Rob, take it away.
All right, Dr. Savage, thank you. Thank you to everybody that sent an email overnight in response to our request for questions. The dominant theme, once again, Dr. Savage and panel, really does have to do with COVID. So let's just start right there. There was a question relating, Dr. Savage, to an update really on the status of where we are. September 1st, you issued that 30-day emergency order. So just bring us up to date where we are here at the end of September.
Thank you, Rob. Absolutely. So basically, our students, of course, masks are required as they have been since the beginning of the school year. However, parents do have that opt-out provision that they can take. We still certainly encourage their use strongly as a health mitigation effort. For staff, that decision of whether to continue will be made and released tomorrow. I will say, just as an aside, we have been very pleasantly surprised to see dramatic reductions in terms of the surge event that we had experienced when we enacted this. We were at the height of the surge, so we've been very happy to see those numbers coming down. However, we still very much work with our local health experts, as well as something else we're going to be doing is convening a panel of health experts to help us not just about masks, but about all of our mitigation measures, and that's something that we're doing very soon. But we are actually meeting with our health experts again tomorrow to get some more input on this piece. So we certainly will be putting out a decision on the staff side of this tomorrow. It just really have to reiterate again, it's not just masks, it's all of our mitigation measures. Masks are just one of them, and we really are going to rely on our health experts to help guide our decision making on that.
And you touched on it, Dr. Savage, but there is some good news in terms of where we are compared to where we were even 2 weeks ago.
Yes, absolutely. So, in terms of the current numbers, there's a slew of different numbers we could talk about, but the current county case positivity rate is at 11.3%, which is excellent to see that drop, as well as Lee Health is down to 86% current staffed bed capacity, so to see that number go down, as well as, we have some excellent numbers in terms of our absenteeism that's come down as well. So we have some other folks here who can talk about some of those data trends as well.
Right, Dr. SPIRO and Jessica Duncan talking about our absences and our COVID data trends in schools. So how is it translating to the school level?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about overall trends that we're seeing, and then I'll let Ms. Duncan jump in with anything else that she wants to add. But I will tell you, yesterday and today have been the best day of student attendance we've seen for the year. And that includes tracking our students that are absent because they're excused, students who are absent because they're unexcused, or students who are coded as Q, which means they've been asked to stay home because either they're exposed or they're positive. So we've seen over the last week and a half that daily student attendance rate continue to drop. Now, we are still higher than we normally would be in a non-COVID year, as we would expect, but those numbers have been coming down since the start of the school year. And Jessica, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
Just that specifically, we're down from 2 weeks ago from today, more than half. And we just want to thank everybody who is practicing frequent cleaning of high-touch areas, practicing hand washing, social distancing when possible, and also respiratory etiquette.
In the follow-up to that, there has been changes, and Jessica, about the quarantine after a positive exposure. Can you bring us up to date on where that stands now?
Sure. So the Department of Health passed Emergency Rule 64 DER 21-15 on September 22nd. And what that does is allow students who are asymptomatic to return to school. So even if we suggest they're quarantined, parents may have the option to send asymptomatic students to school.
And also a question that comes in again, Dr. SPIRO, that directs this towards you, but homecoming. And one parent even particularly worried already about the spring and prom.
Sure.
So where are our high schools with these, annual ritual events?
Great question, and I'm glad that's on the mind of our students that are out there. Our pandemic team recently had given guidance to our school principals that outdoor dances are permitted. Therefore, schools that wanted to host a homecoming dance and have that outside, similar to what we did last year at prom, is a permissible activity. And I know many of our schools are in the throes of homecoming week for our high school kids. I've seen a lot of those spirit days on social media, so it looks like there's a lot of fun going on at the schools, but homecoming dances are permitted outside.
I know in a conversation I had with the principal, he talked about making it more of maybe a fall or a winter dance, something like that. You just change the theme, but you still get to have the opportunity.
It does, and I would say for prom's a little early, and we definitely, our intent always is to make sure that we, as much as possible, allow for those milestone moments for students to occur. So we will look for every avenue to make that happen for our students, but there's no official announcement about prom yet, because that's certainly further down the road.
Dr. Savage, let me ask you this question that's already come in to our feed, and maybe you can help explain, as we talk about our health partners that are going to help us over the month ahead, who are some of these groups that we'll be consulting with?
Yeah, we're putting together a list. We have some of our local health providers, local pediatricians. There's a whole slew of folks that we have just in our local health community, the Department of Health, that we meet with every single week in kind of a standing meeting. However, what we're also trying to do is balance this out with experts, not just medical experts that aren't in our area, but also some academic experts here. Because one of the things that we are trying to balance is this obvious need for the highest quality in-person instruction with these mitigation efforts, things that are hard to implement. And so it's really a balanced effort in this next group that we'll be doing. And one of the key things they'll be charged with doing is deciding at what levels essentially will certain mitigation measures be applied. And so like coming through what we've been in the midst of this massive surge that we had with Delta, unlike anything we had experienced, what would be our full complement of strategies, and at what point do we engage those, and at what point do we relax some of those measures and go to more moderate means, and at what point do we kind of bring it down even lower? And so those are things that we don't just want the medical and scientific experts that we've recruited, but additionally trying to get some academic experts too, so that it's a balancing act. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's our specialty, is not the medical science side of it. It really is the academic side. And that's our top priority, but we have to do it safely. So we have a list of those folks. Once that's ready to be released, we'll certainly put that out.
Dr. SPIRO, back to you. A question from particularly our parents of younger students. They're wondering when they can get in volunteer in the classroom. When can they go have lunch with their kindergartner and first grade student again?
Yeah, great question, because really we were excited when we began the school year to allow the opportunity to open that up, and then as we went through that surge, those opportunities have been closed. So our pandemic team, who's still working with our local health officials, that's one of the topics of conversation that we're having ongoing, is when can we reopen that opportunity for parents to come in, do some small group instruction with our students, come in and have lunch with them. Right now, it's not happening right now, but I can tell you that that is part of the conversation that team is having, and we want to make that happen as soon as possible, because we know the importance of that family and school connection, and we want to make sure we continue to nurture that.
Yep. All right, thank you. And Roger Lloyd, to you, transportation. This question came in. What kind of efforts is the district doing to hire and retain bus drivers? What's the current situation? As you know, you have spoken since over a year about we're going to have a shortage.
Yeah, and it's been an ongoing process for at least the last 10 or 11 months. We first saw it coming. We started off, with getting with local agencies. We've been to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We went to the luncheon there to speak to that group. We're working with FSW here. In a couple weeks, we'll have a bus out there for the haunted bus in the trunk or treat that they're doing, but we'll be out there recruiting there. We work in collaboration, thanks to Dr. Savage, with the lead tax collector. With the spike in COVID, they've kind of gone down to an appointment only, which really slowed the process up. So we worked through a system to where our potential employees can go through, take their 4 permit testing that they need to do in a much quicker manner. So we've been working Florida Southwest Fair, school messengers for the parents out there. I'm sure you got those messages every other week for the whole spring. So it is something we have been working diligently on. I think the big thing, which is, I guess, groundbreaking, if you want to say that, we are hiring employees now from the street straight to full-time positions. So you come on, you get hired full-time after we train you to get your CDL. You get $16.32 an hour, plus you get full benefits, and you go from there. You're part of the Florida retirement system. And that's never been the case before. You'd be hired as a substitute, and then you'd have to wait a time until openings were there. But late in the spring, we did open that up, and we're hiring people full-time. And that's the big benefit there. Even previously, again, we pick up the cost, the fingerprinting cost, about $317 worth of costs that the district picks up. So if we have anybody out there that's looking for a job, we're willing to get you behind the wheel, get you trained up, and get you to help us out here.
And the status of where we're at when we started the school year, in need of about 100 drivers?
Yep, and we're still in the same boat. I know you and I talked last week on Facebook Live. We have about 40 routes that we have uncovered, meaning we don't have a driver for. And then you're looking about 60 drivers a day that are calling off sick. So on the average day, it's 100 drivers that we need to get up and get these kids to school safely and in a timely manner.
Doing everything you can.
We sure are.
The department moves mountains to get kids to and from school.
We try.
Well, hopefully these recruitment efforts pay off.
Yep.
So Rick Parfitt, this next question would come your way. It has to do about the students who were alleged to have plotted an act to commit a mass shooting at one of our school, and there, if you recall, there was even a petition. The question was, can these students at some point ever return to one of our schools?
Well, the district takes any threat to commit a mass shooting or very serious, and especially so when an arrest is made. But of course, Florida statutes, board policy, and the code of conduct have provisions in them for due process and how those cases are handled. So I couldn't say how any particular case is going to be handled, but there is a process in place for those.
And do you know about the ability to return, related back to even to that petition?
I saw the same. I mean, there obviously are provisions for students to return. There are alternative education programs and things like that.
And let's talk also, this question came in because this has been in the news and circulating on social media, these trends, these challenges that encourage some vandalism. And it has happened, maybe not on a grand scale like in some other places, but it has happened in some of our schools. So what's been going on?
Yes, and the one referred to here, the Devious Licks, a TikTok viral social media trend where students are recording themselves or others stealing, damaging property, putting it on these platforms. Some of the social media platforms like TikTok, for example, has taken those down. They've directed a lot of those searches to their social media guidelines. But like any type of vandalism or criminal mischief, they're subject to disciplinary procedures in the school or even arrest and prosecution.
So they're not going to be taken lightly. I think a lot of parents would like to know.
Correct.
Good. A question, Jessica, that came in as well. It was a concern about bullying. So what is the procedure, and is it being followed? Was also part of that question.
Yes, schools are required to follow the bullying process. Complaints are investigated at the school level. So anybody looking for information about that process can look at Board Policy 414, bullying and harassment, and that will give the process and also any information related to the Hope Scholarship. Additionally, in the Code of Conduct, we have information about bullying and a flow chart, which outlines the process. So those are two documents that individuals can go to. You can also always call Student Services, and we'll help walk you through that process and also help facilitate any conversation with the school.
All right, so just follow those practices, look those up, be aware, but it is taken seriously. There really is no tolerance.
Correct. Yes, bullying is not tolerated. It's taken very seriously.
All right. Roger, there's a follow-up question for you that's come in for our audience that's watching, and just wondering if they have a concern about their child's bus situation. Who do they reach out to? How do they help make it better for their child if they're having an issue on the bus?
They need to call the bus compound for the zone in which they live. So the west zone, the bus compound actually is right behind Mariner High School, but there's a number to call there. If they live out in Lehigh or out in our east zone, we actually have two compounds, one in Buckingham and one off of Leonard Street, so they can call either one and get their answers. And then here in the south zone, we have it right off of 6 Mile Cypress, right by Walmart. We have a location there, so all they need to do is call their zone compound.
All right, so reach out and try to get some help.
Yep.
So those really conclude the questions that were sent in and they've been posted so far. Maybe real quickly, Dr. Savage, any final thoughts or final words?
Absolutely, Rob, thank you. Just, one thing I want to kind of reiterate is that with respect to this COVID pandemic, while we are certainly happy to see the numbers come way down, it's been a long journey. And sadly, this journey may not be over. It may be something that we have to contend with now and for much of the foreseeable future. Fortunately, there's a lot of things out there. Everyone in the world is working on, whether it's the expansion of vaccines to younger children, but it's really incumbent on us, since there's been so much disruption to the educational process, that we have to continue to find a way to not disrupt our learning. So we have to continue to adapt. We have to be as creative as possible. Now, hopefully we don't go through another situation like this Delta surge that we experienced to open our school year. Hopefully that'll be the worst of it that we ever experience, but there's no guarantee that that's the case. And so what we're really going to be doing as we look towards our mitigation efforts is really to try to ensure with the expert panel that what we do is based on data and expert guidance, and yet it's also a balancing effort, constantly balancing the risk. We recognize that there's an academic risk to our children if they have their learning disrupted. So we're going to be as creative as possible to try to find a way to eliminate as much risk as we can while still prioritizing a functional learning experience for all of our students, to try to keep our kids safe, to try to keep our staff as safe as possible. But it is going to be a tremendous balancing act, and it may go on for quite some time. So for those who haven't seen, we're really looking forward to establishing levels of how things will be done, so that essentially we have our worst level, which would be when the numbers are very, very high. There's lots of absenteeism, there's high hospitalization, the local health system is at its overwhelmed state. That's where we're going to be in our most significant levels of measures. Then when we are not in quite that level, but we are experiencing kind of a more of a moderate level of risk, and the numbers are not quite as bad as they were, we'll still have mitigation efforts for those. And then when the numbers drop to a low level, then we'll have what those other mitigation efforts, and those things will all be validated, ranked by our panel of experts. Looking forward to that work, and that way we'll be prepared so that no matter what the conditions change to be, we'll have a plan that everyone knows and is prepared for well in advance, and we can adapt as we go. So we're just very excited to have that. Just want to thank everyone for their continued patience. This has been so trying for our entire community, certainly for our staff and our children. So just thank you to everyone out there for the support you can give to our schools, to your child's teacher, to if you're a staff member. We just are so grateful for you, for everyone who's out there watching today. We just appreciate all of the sacrifices that everyone has had to make to put our child education system at the forefront. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Savage and Dr. Spiro, Roger, Jessica, Rick, for being here and answering these questions that were sent in to us. We'll have another Facebook Live a couple weeks from now. One of the main topics of that we're going to focus on is sales tax. So you'll want to join us for that and look for those notices, and we'll also take some questions and put a panel together to make sure that our parents are informed. Everybody, thank you. Thank you for watching, and have a good afternoon.